Diamond B Sports presents the American Sports Cavalcade. A panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
This is the Crawfordsville Road, just to the west of Indianapolis, Indiana. For about 360 days out of the year, it's a clean shot between Claremont and Brownsburg down the way. But one weekend annually, it's clogged with traffic. Thousands of fans making their way into Indianapolis Raceway Park, the home of the greatest drag race of them all. Hi, I'm Brock Yates, and welcome to the 32nd running of the US Nationals, where over the years, the great and the near great have come to compete. Most of the time, the greats have won. For example, the last two races have been won by Big Daddy Don Garlits, the Top Fuel champion. But this year, there are some young lions after his crown. And believe me, there are some interesting personalities that we're going to see. For more on that, let's go to my partner, Steve Evans.
Well, Brock, the young lion that drives this car makes no secret of his desire to overtake Big Daddy Don Garlits as the king of Top Fuel dragster racing. And Darrell Gwynn made a giant stride towards that here at this year's U.S. Nationals. In qualifying, in this very car, they're preparing for second round action. Darrell recorded the quickest elapsed time in the history of drag racing, 5.34 seconds. But he had to back that up within 1% to be official. He did it this morning in first round competition. He was very excited. Gary Beck's 5:39 national lapse time record set 3 years ago at Orange County, California, has been erased from the books by this man. Darrell, your 5:34, you backed it up just now with a 37.
I'll tell you, I just about erased that record. I wasn't concentrating on that record. Honestly, I wasn't. We're just trying to get down this racetrack 4 times in a row today. That's all it's going to take is some low 40s, mid 40s to win this race. And by God, that's what we're trying to do.
But here's where the numbers at the U.S. Nationals start to sound a little bit like science fiction. The funny car category. In qualifying, Kenny Bernstein, the quickest ever run by a funny car, 5.50 seconds. But that's not really the story. The speed, 271 miles per hour. That's faster than Don Garlits, Darrell Gwynn, Shirley Muldowney, or any Top Fuel dragster. That's top speed of the event. Now, Bernstein has not yet backed up either one of those numbers. He'll have the rest of today to do that. But another funny car driver kind of came in the back door, Mark Oswald. He eclipsed the existing record at 266 miles an hour. That might be a little bit easier to back up. I talked to Bernstein, however, after his 271. You'd have thought they won the U.S. Nationals.
Right, that's it, that's it. Well, I knew it was good. I mean, I knew. I got down here and I was just hollering in there. That's super. Darmstrong, man, I'm going to kiss you all over. Yes, sir.
You can feel that one in the seat of your pants.
No question, Steve. When it left, it had the front end up and it quivered and went, and then it started picking up, and I got the other end, the chute came out, and I said, that's the fastest I've ever been, and I usually don't know that much about it really that close, but I knew that one.
Oh, the fans are waving today. 50,000 Hoosiers out here to watch second round Top Fuel action, Steve.
Indeed, Brock, and our next race will be Dick LaHaye. Here you see his daughter Kim getting that 3,000 horsepower Hemi engine fired up. He will be up against a man who, in only his sophomore season of professional drag racing, has one national event win. That is Dan Pastorini. You see the black car in the background there. Pastorini winning the Southern Nationals at Atlanta earlier this year.
Well, these guys both have had very good seasons, Steve. Both rather underfinanced competitors compared to some of the other teams, but they have come on very strong, both LaHaye and Pastorini. I would say this is very much a toss-up. Dan, of course, has shown terrific poise in his first season, and LaHaye, a real veteran. But in terms of mechanical backup, as it were, their machinery, probably pretty much an even go here.
And also, Brock, I would say it's an even go as far as driving ability is concerned. Normally, you'd say, well, a guy like LaHaye with 25 years experience must have an edge. Pastorini, an absolute natural.
He has been terrific. He's shown great poise at the starting line, terrific control of this giant car. Dan Pastorini, of course, one of the greats in the quarterback ranks of the National Football League before moving into Top Fuel dragsters.
And Dick LaHaye, a man who at least a couple of times has considered retirement from the sport, but it's just in his blood, Brock, and he makes a living at it somehow, some way.
He sure does. Nobody works harder than Dick LaHaye as we watch Dan Pastorini getting ready here. A good matchup between two relatively underfinanced teams. There's Kim LaHaye, Dick's daughter, as always, directing her dad back into the starting lights. She is such a terrific mechanic. Boy, I don't think anybody gets under a car and works harder than Kim LaHaye.
No, I'd agree with that, unless it's Jim Brissett, the man that wrenches the car for Dan Pastorini, who took over mid-season from his former mechanic, Donnie Couch. One thing LaHaye never does, Brock, is beat himself. He seldom ever burns up the engine.
That's right. Well, he really can't afford to. As you say, he runs on a budget, runs professionally, has to keep that equipment together all season long as they get ready to go here at Indianapolis Raceway Park.
It is LaHaye off the mark first, but only by 100th of a second. A tremendous drag race, but by just about a car length, it is Dick LaHaye winning at 5:45 to Pastorini's 5:51.
Let's take another look at what was a fine drag race, won by Dick LaHaye at 5:45. Here they go. A good lead by both drivers. LaHaye with just a slight advantage, but both straight and true down this excellently prepared quarter mile here at Indianapolis Raceway Park. And there you see LaHaye in the near lane, moving out to about a car length victory.
Well, Dick LaHaye starting to lower his elapsed times down into a zone where he could be a real threat to win this. Dick, a very nice 5:45 against Dan Pastorini.
Oh, thank you very much, Steve. We was a little concerned on that first round, and it ran 51, but it ran on 7 cylinders, and I guess it ran on 8 that time, and we put a little clutch in it, and it worked just fine.
Like a pretty good race from where we were.
I never seen him. I think I left pretty good, so I'm just tickled to death that we're in the job cars in the ground another round.
Well, the former quarterback saw a lot of that man, Dick LaHaye.
So Dick LaHaye moves into the semifinals here at the U.S. Nationals, an honor unto itself against an enormously powerful field of top fuel dragsters.
We're back at the 32nd running of the NHRA US Nationals, the world's biggest and best drag race in Indianapolis, Indiana. This is race number 2 in the second round, and it will pit Darrell Gwynn up against former world champion, 2-time world champion, Gary Beck.
Oh, this is a young man on the rise against a man who has really had an on and off season. Of course, Gary Beck, one of the finest of all the top fuel drivers and engine designers, a man who has made major great breakthroughs over the years, Steve, in fuel injection systems, fuel systems for these cars, but right now seems to be in kind of a plateau.
Funny car racer Kenny Bernstein and his crew chief Dale Armstrong satisfied their curiosity as to how their combination would work in a dragster by getting involved with this young man. That is the same kind of an engine that Kenny runs in his funny car. It has carried Darrell to 2 victories. Gary Beck, well, he will be all done with this Larry Minor team at the end of this season. That has already been announced. His future plans remain unknown.
Well, somebody will find a great driver if they sign on Gary Beck, because we know how good he is as a drag racer and also as an engine preparer. But right now, his mind is devoted exclusively to beating the kid who has really been the big news of this top fuel racing season, Steve.
He and Don Garlits, Brock, both have won 3 championships so far this year. But Garlits is ahead in the World Championship points because he has won more rounds than Darrell Gwynn. The races where Gwynn was defeated, he went out very early. And there is Gary Beck. Boy, would he like to pay back Darrell Gwynn for stealing his national record.
Well, Gary beat Hank Endres in the first round. Darrell got by Gary Ormsby to reach this second round of competition. But right now, I would imagine, Steve, that his spirits are considerably higher with the team up with Kenny Bernstein, because if they lacked anything on this Darrell Gwynn team, it was fun.
That's right, but let's give Gwynn credit for one. The Winter Nationals, the opening race of the year, he was victorious there without any help from anybody. All right, it is Gary Beck staging over in the far lane. Wheels inching forward into those electronic starting line beams. Both drivers using a hand brake for very precise staging control.
It's interesting that at 270 miles an hour at one end of this strip, this starting procedure where you're going a quarter of a mile an hour is almost as critical as at the other end.
Indeed, they're ready. They leave right together. A lot of clutch dust out of both cars in the near lane, just powering away. Darrell Gwynn goes to the semifinals at 5.40 seconds.
269 miles an hour to Gary Beck's 5:57.255. So Darrell beats Gary on both ends of that ET and top speed aspect. Here comes that wildly radical machine of Texan Gene Snow, showing inspiration from both Big Daddy Don Garlett's small front wheels and the aerodynamics introduced by Gary Ormsby, Steve.
Indeed. In fact, those front wheels are an exact copy of what Garlett's is running. They're a nose wheel off of a small aircraft. Now, Garlett's, as you can see, his front tires are enclosed. Snow's are not.
Right. That is the king, Big Daddy Don Garlett's, moving in there with his radical machine. So we're going to see a matchup here between two of these small front-wheel top-fuel cars. Garlett's versus Gene Snow. Remember now, this is second-round action here at IRP. Let's go to Steve.
Daryl Gwen told me earlier he was tuning this car to run 540. It ran 540.
Well, I'll tell you, we backed her down again that run, and I think it's going to take that every run this weekend is to slowly back the thing down a little bit. Looks like we're going to have to do some clutch work this next round, but you know, the later the rounds, the tougher it's going to get, and we're right in the battle.
Now that sounds like smart racing, because it's the natural urge to put more power in any race car.
That's right, but this animal right here has got more power than I know what to do with, and we're toning this thing down, and I'd like to thank Dodge and all the people from Budweiser. Thank you.
Well, Steve, we've got some problems down here on the starting line. That's Gene Snow's crew working on what appears to be the injection system of his top fuel car as he sits patiently trying to get a head of steam up here to go against Big Daddy Don Garlett.
There is Chief Starter Buster Couch in the center, the big fella. He's checking it out. He will have the final authority as to whether that car leaves the starting line or not. They have got a fuel leak on the hack, what they call the injector that sits on top of the motor. No problem with Don Garlett, the winningest drag racer of them all in the top fuel category, and certainly the innovator as far as the design of these machines is concerned. His opponent, Gene Snow, an oil man from Texas. He doesn't have a lot to do right now. Plenty of time to devote to drag racing.
Well, I don't know, Steve. He may have more time on his hands than you realize. That is Buster Couch, the chief starter here, saying, cut it off, Gene. We got too much fuel leaking out of that motor to make it safe.
So this will be bad news for the rest of the field. Don Garlett will waltz into the semifinals. A bye run. Big Daddy's going to run it all the way through, though, Brock.
He sure is. He wants that lane choice. 5:53, 258 miles an hour. That's a good pass, but nowhere near the 540 that we just saw Daryl Gwynn run. As we push the Gene Snow dragster out of the starting line, there's that fuel leak that caused all the problem, the residue of a disastrous day here for Gene Snow. And a real disappointment for the fans who were looking forward to a matchup between two of the more radical machines here at Indianapolis.
Well, for Don Garlett, it's a 5:53 on a solo pass, but Don, it looked like a little oil coming out of it.
Yeah, we might have nipped one.
A big deal.
Just put new engines in. That's the way this game's played, if you have to.
You know, you've been struggling a little bit for you, coming off the win at Brainerd and in here. I know you've been frustrated not getting those 540s and 30s like maybe some of the other people are.
Well, what can I tell you? I don't know what's wrong with it. I mean, we're doing everything we can.
Well, it isn't exactly like Garlett's is shy of victories here. This would be his third U.S. Nationals victory in a row if he wins it today. So you can see how intense the veteran star from Florida is. He never lets up.
Well, Brock, if he could win this afternoon, it would not only be his third in a row, but 8 total, and obviously no one's ever done that.
Well, here's an interesting matchup, Steve. We got Joe Amato, a former world champion, going against a guy that really hasn't had all that much success, Ray Stutz from California.
Well, it depends on how you measure success. Ray Stutz is a fireman. Joe Amato operates $1 million automotive wholesale business. Stutz has qualified for every single race this year and has gone to at least the second round in most of them. To him, that's success.
Well, that's right, Steve. There's a big philosophy difference here between these two guys. Joe Amato, of course, uses up the equipment. He is one of those very, very well-prepared teams that will use equipment to the limit. Ray Stutz, on the other hand, a lot like Dick LaHaye, will conserve his equipment. His strategy, run steady all the time and let the other man make the mistakes.
Well, the common denominator of the two, though, Brock, is they both thoroughly love top fuel drag racing, devoted to it.
Well, Steve, I understand that Ray Stutz raises exotic snakes on a part-time basis to help fund his drag racing effort. Is that right?
That's absolutely true, Brock, and there's more than one race team here that has the pet snake right in the pit. You got to be careful where you walk around here.
Well, Joe Amato, in a terrific race in the first round, beat Shirley Muldowney, and Eddie Hill fell to Ray Stutz. So Joe Amato on a roll right now, and a man, though, that after he won his world championship, kind of fell on hard times.
Well, that has happened so many times over the years, Brock. That's why there's so few repeat Top Fuel World Champions. Joe Amato debuted a new car at Brainerd. Didn't care for the way it reacted. Went back to his old machine for the U.S. Nationals, a tried and true chassis. Race Dutch in the far lane. You can see his car a good deal shorter, about 4 or 5 years old.
Right, one of the earlier cars in a sport right now that is in a massive revolution of technology with the small front wheels and new aerodynamic bodies.
Here we go, off the mark together. Joe Amato powers into the lead. Gets Amato by a half a car, a full car, and more. Joe Amato with 550, 260 miles per hour.
And he will round out the field for the semifinals here in Top Fuel at the U.S. Nationals. That will bring together for the very best Big Daddy Don Garlits versus Joe Amato. Amato has the lane choice because of the lower ET. In the other pairing, we've got Dick LaHaye and the youngster from Florida, Darrell Gwynn. Gwynn with the lane choice and the low ET of the 4.
There will be at least a half a dozen people working on Darrell Gwynn's car. Not so in the Dick LaHaye pit. There is only Kim LaHaye here working on the clutch of the automobile along with her dad. We'll be right back with funny car competition.
That rear end belongs to Big Daddy Don Garlits' Top Fuel car, a rear end specially designed to absorb over 3,000 horsepower as Big Daddy propels it down the track here at Indianapolis Raceway Park. I am Brock Gates along with Steve Evans, and we're ready for some second round funny car action, Steve.
Well, we've talked earlier about Kenny Bernstein and Mark Oswald. They've been setting this place on fire for the past 5 days. But here's a couple of spoilers. Mike Dunn versus John Force. If you followed our NHRA drag racing coverage this year, you know how frustrated Force has been. He can get to the finals, he just can't seem to win one.
Boy, he wants so badly. Nobody works harder in this sport than Force. He is a full-time, hardcore funny car competitor, but he just can't seem to get that thing into victory lane.
Well, if this was a car show, Mike Dunn had won it. That beautiful Joe Paisano-owned car. Boy, it is a stunner. With the emergency hatch open to let some of the heat and smoke out of the car, we see John Force backing up in that far lane. A tremendous crowd on hand here, Brock. And you know, they seldom ever sit down, especially during Top Fuel and Funny Car. Everybody up, jiving around, a little money changing hands here and there.
Oh, boy. They sure have fun. 5 days of racing here at Indianapolis Raceway Park leads to this day of finals here. And I'll tell you, the folks have been on their feet just about since the gates opened, Steve.
Mike Dunn from Southern California. The Joe Paisano car only campaigns about a half a dozen races a year, primarily on the West Coast, where this fella is also from. John Brute Force, Bellflower, California, and the nickname is very appropriate.
As we said, a man who still seeks his first championship in NHRA ranks, but never will you find a guy that tries harder and devotes more time and effort to the sport.
Mike Dunn actually has won a national event a couple of years ago, Brock, in the San Francisco Bay Area. The Golden Gate Nationals, that was back at the wheel of Roland Leon's Hawaiian car.
Now, Steve, the interesting thing about Dunn's car is that car builder Joe Paisano has been getting into the engine business along with Keith Black, and his modification of the old Chrysler Hemi is now being carried by a number of the top drivers, including Big Daddy Don Garlits. That JP1 is a force to be reckoned with, both in funny cars and Top Fuel.
Absolutely. Okay, this is still second round of funny car action. The winner goes into the semifinals. John Force now has both of the gloved hands on that little butterfly steering wheel. Likewise, over in the near lane, these drivers also stage with a hand brake, just like the Top Fuel cars.
In a sense, a little more difficult, Steve, because you can't really see the nose of those cars like you can the front wheels of a Top Fuel car. So it takes a lot of experience to squeeze into the lights, as we see Dunn and Force doing right now.
They are ready. John Force is late. Mike Dunn with a big hole shot advantage. Mike Dunn in the near lane. Can he hang on? Yes, but barely. Joe Paisano, the car owner, boy, he loved this one, the biggest race of the year, and he goes to the semis. Dunn ran quicker at 574, but the hole shot really gave it to him.
It sure did. As we watch, here's Mike Dunn in the near lane, coming out nice and clean. Now notice Force apparently gets on the power a little bit too much and just gets a little sideways and takes some more speed off, and that's all that Mike Dunn needed to move out to about a car length victory and to put poor John Force on the trailer for the day. Let's go to Steve at the other end.
Well, this young man should get a pat on the back from car owner Joe Paisano. A 900th hole shot. What a drag race. 574.
Good. Yeah, it was a good run. We finally got rid of the shake off the concrete, and that helped it out. We could run low gear out, and she stepped right up. It was a good run. I got to give credit to Joe Paisano and Gary Slusher. They did a good job tuning the motor up that time.
Indeed, John Forsman at 576, but it wasn't as close as it should have been due to your good driving.
Well, yeah, my foot must have slipped and hit it right on time. I never did see him, but I just seen him right in the lights. You know, it is a good drag race. We're just happy to be here.
Happy to have you back.
Thank you, Steve.
So Mike Dunn moves the Joe Paisano car into the semifinals here at IRP as we get ready for a matchup between two of the toughest competitors in funny car racing.
Ed McCullough came back from a disastrous fire at the first race of the year to win the second and third races, the Gator Nationals and the Southern Nationals. Here you can see the precise throttle control that Ed McCullough uses to keep those tires up without over-revving the engine, just playing with that throttle and opening the roof hatch to let the smoke out. Now, firing late is Mark Oswald in the Candies and Hughes car. No doubt a conversation between the two before. McCullough said, I've got a little warmer motor. Let me do my burnout. That's pretty common stuff.
Now we've got an extra incentive here for Mark Oswald. Don't forget now, if he can back up that 266 miles an hour that he put up in the first round, he's got himself an NHRA national record.
And also some bonus points for doing that. And it's Oswald and Kenny Bernstein fighting it out for the World Championship, and every point is critical.
It has been an up and down season. Remember, the Candies and Hughes team, Steve, went in a big slump last year, had problems earlier in the season, and now suddenly have refound their famous combination and are on a roll right now.
Indeed they are. They have won 3 races this year.
So we've got a Pontiac versus Oldsmobile race here. Ed McCullough, Ed the Ace, driving for the Larry Minor team in his Oldsmobile funny car against the Pontiac Trans Am of Mark Oswald, the professional from Cincinnati, Ohio, driving for the Louisiana team.
Brock, what we can't see inside these cars are all the levers and bells and whistles. As they're backing up, they push one lever forward to run the engine rich, and then they'll lean it out when they go to the line. These guys, you got to be half fighter pilot, as we've said before.
That's right. You would think to drive a car straight down a quarter mile of asphalt would be a relatively simple procedure, but to repeat so many times, as we said before, this is an exceedingly complicated 5 seconds.
And right now it's one-on-one as each driver tries to get the advantage off of the starting line. Ed McCullough in the far lane, Mark Oswald in the near lane. Staged and ready, and they leave right together. Oswald and McCullough. It is Oswald pulling ahead. McCullough dropping back. Mark Oswald, the Candies and Hughes team, will go into the semifinals. A nice 564. No, they did not back up the record. 260 will not do it.
That's right. He needed to be within 1% or 2.6 miles an hour to get that record. That is the pit area of Joe Amato. Remember now, he's getting ready for his semifinal race against Big Daddy Don Garland.
Everything looks to be pretty routine as Joe Amato and his crew chief Tim Richards talk over the combination they hope will put Big Daddy on the trailer. But over in Garland's camp, it's just a bit more intense. As Garland's is now taking off the supercharger manifold, that means both cylinder heads will come off. He'll look at all 8 pistons, replace anything that needs to be replaced, and if he has to, put in a whole new bullet because he knows Amato will be a tough customer coming up. Stay with us at the U.S. Nationals.
Back at the U.S. Nationals, I'm Brock Yates along with Steve Evans, and that is the clutch plate of Darrell Gwynn's Top Fuel car. Remember now, Darrell getting ready for the semifinal action here, where he will go up against Dick LaHaye. The man with the quickest time in the Top Fuel cars is Darrell right now, but the man, Steve Evans, who has quick time in the funny cars is also coming to the line right now.
That's right. Kenny Bernstein right here in his Ford Tempo Body creation has a chance to back up a pair of world records. He elapsed time at 550, the speed record of 271. And you did some math, Brock. What does he have to run speed-wise to back that up?
Well, Steve, the NHRA says you got to run within 1%. Now, at top speed, that means that he's got to run somewhere between about 269 miles an hour or 273. That's that 1% high-low range that he's got to work with.
Well, I don't think that's occupying much of his thoughts at the moment, Brock. This man is. This is Jim White, the Dick Moritz-owned Dodge Daytona car from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Well, Steve, if Kenny loses to White, it will be the upset of the day because Bernstein has been the strongest of the funny car competitors for over a season now.
But all you have to do is smoke the tires, and a carpet dealer from Oklahoma like Jim White can beat you to that other end. And Bernstein has had that happen to him. Here a few years ago in a final against Jim Head, Bernstein appeared to have all the cards, but he smoked the tires, went up the starting line, and that's what they're endeavoring not to do here today, not to beat themselves.
I'm sure that's the truth. He will, and that is an interesting point because he would like to get that world record. That means he's going to have to run very hard, but running as hard as that brings along the danger of tire shake and smoking the tires.
There's so many secrets in this automobile. We told you the story last year, the terrible towel. Well, that's still on the car. They at all times when that body is up, cover up some kind of a component there. Now, Jim White had quite a thrill in the first round. It was he who trailered the defending champion, John Lombardo, in the Blue Max. Kenny Bernstein got around Brad Tuttle. They are ready and off the mark first. It is Bernstein powering in front. Bernstein getting a little loose in the middle of the course. He lost some traction there, and that's going to cost him those records. A 5.65 wins it at 258 miles an hour, a long ways from backing up either end.
Not even close, but he does move into the semifinals, and that is the most important part of this. But wait a minute, you're not seeing double. That is the body of Kenny Bernstein's Ford Tempo, but it is on the chassis of Billy Meyer's car. He'll be going against Johnny West and Roland Leong's Hawaiian. But that automobile that Billy Meyer is driving, carrying that spare body of Kenny Bernstein's, is an interesting story. He had some problems earlier in the going, and we'll get to that in a minute. But as we watch Johnny West doing his burnouts, this is going to be a mighty strong drag race between two veteran competitors. Johnny West, one of the best of the fill-in drivers, been around years and years and years, run for a number of the top teams. Billy Meyer, on the other hand, out of Waco, Texas, has run his own equipment, both top fuel cars and funny cars. Now let's go to Steve.
The funny car body has not yet come up on Kenny Bernstein's car. The reason is the Candies and Hughes crew is still down here. We've told you the story before about the secret towel. Well, they can't run with that on. And this crew had the class and the sportsmanship to say, hey, don't lift the body. He doesn't want us to see something. And that's what's going on here. Kenny Bernstein hopefully will exit the roof of the automobile. He may not even do that. Yep, here he comes. I'll tell you, that was an interesting gesture on the part of the Candies and Hughes car, telling the turnaround guys not to lift the body. So Kenny Bernstein is out of the car, a fine 5.65. I'm sure he's very pleased with that, but intends to run a little bit quicker as the afternoon goes on.
Well, Steve, it's going to take Kenny a couple of minutes to get unbuttoned there. So let's go back down to the starting line where Billy Meyer, in that other Kenny Bernstein bodied car, gets ready to go against Johnny West.
There's been very little sleep in the Billy Meyer camp, Brock. These bodies do not just bolt on and off like on a snap-together model. It takes a lot of work, and that man, Billy, had to fly in people from his home base in Waco, Texas, and here's why. This was in qualifying. Earlier this weekend, the body literally destroyed. It wasn't just a fire. It was a concussion so hard that the body was just turned to small little fragments.
It's hard to believe that a driver can get through this without injury, but Billy Meyer was unhurt in an incredible blower explosion, one of the worst we have ever seen. But he returns to race here today.
It definitely, did major damage and stuff, and if we had gotten a different car, we would have had to requalify. However, with the rules, just by keeping the same car and changing bodies, we stayed qualified after that run. That's with, Kenny Bernstein's help. That's what we elected to do.
His opponent will be Johnny West. His second year at the wheel of Roland Leong's car. He won one national event last year up in Canada, the Grand Nationals, and he will be in the far lane. So far, Brock, we have not seen any lane imbalance. They appear to be equal as far as traction is concerned. Let's hope they stay that way. Makes for good drag racing.
Well, this track is one of the very, very best in the world, Steve, and the only thing that can alter that, of course, is an oil down. And so far today, with these big, strong race cars, we haven't had anything like that.
It is Johnny West off the mark first. Billy Meyer about a car length behind. At half-track, Meyer pulls even and drives around Johnny West at the expense of a few pistons. Billy Meyer at 5.69 to Johnny West 5.89. But West had a nice advantage right off the mark.
He sure did. West, one of the finest drivers in the business, as we said, gets a little bit of a jump on Billy Meyer with that Kenny Bernstein bodied car. Billy, though, just driving straight and true, as you can see right here. The mid-track power comes into play, and he moves on to victory and to get into the semifinals here at the U.S. Nationals.
Well, with all of his problems and a strange body on board his funny car, Billy Meyer still has suddenly become a major player in this funny car competition. Billy? 5:69.
Well, considering where we were Friday, that's pretty good. I guess we have Oswald this run. I don't know what he ran.
5:64.
Okay, well, we're moving up a little bit each run, so a little thanks to Kenny and the Budweiser people, we at least got a little bit of chance here.
Well, I don't recall any time that all funny car semifinals were in the 5:60s.
I don't either, actually. I wish you wouldn't have told me that.
Okay,
No,
see you then.
all right, thank you very much.
So, Billy Meyer moves into the semifinals here at Indianapolis Raceway Park. He will pair up against Mark Oswald. Mark with the lane choice in that particular race. The other two, interesting. Kenny Bernstein versus Mike Dunn. Mike Dunn definitely the underdog in that particular event.
And no prima donna race car driver either, Brock. Here you see Mike Dunn with the gloves on, wrenches in hand. He is adjusting the clutch, how much slippage will be between the engine and the rear tires, and that can be the critical thing in these cars, even more important sometimes than horsepower. Well, a special treat coming up here at the NHRA US Nationals, the Mr. Gasket Pro Stock Challenge. Now, this is a special program that has gone on for 9 races since the beginning of the season. Drivers earn points according to their qualifying position at those races. The top 8 points earners, well, they take the spotlight at the US Nationals, $15,000 to the winner.
So the first pair will be Butch Leo versus Don Coons, but both of those guys are remembering the terrific 190-mile-an-hour top speed put up earlier by Warren Johnson's Oldsmobile. Incredible that a pro stock car can turn that kind of speed. Earlier, Steve had a look at these exotic machines and what makes them go so quickly.
190 miles per hour from a drag racing pro stock car. I saw it with my own eyes, and I still find it incredible. After all, these cars don't have a huge oval track to run around and gain that kind of speed, and they don't have nitromethane or superchargers. They do it on gasoline and carburetors. See this beautiful Camaro from California? Well, Bill Orndorff, Jerry Ekman, his driver, and their crew, they're going to denude it for us, and literally it comes apart like a snap-together model. We cheated a little bit and took the fasteners out beforehand. Now, the engines in the field from 1st to 16th probably don't vary more than 20, 30, maybe 40 horsepower. What really counts is the chassis setup on these cars. Now, they weigh 2,350 pounds. That's the minimum weight. They're chrome moly, very sophisticated construction. Now, interesting in the front are these adjustable struts. Now, you can vary the wheel stand of the car right up the starting line. If it doesn't come up at all, then you don't get the necessary weight transfer to put that power to the ground. If it comes up too high, it gets on the wheelie bars and then unloads the rear tire. So the adjustment on these struts is absolutely critical. Now, as far as weight distribution is concerned, you might figure with a drag racing car you'd want a lot in the back. Well, you certainly do. They have moved virtually everything they possibly can legally to the rear of the automobile. These 2 huge batteries, it takes a lot of voltage to crank a 500 cubic inch engine. They're back here. The fuel cell is back here. The fuel pumps to pump the gasoline up to the carburetors, that's back here. And look at all of this weight. The car really wouldn't meet the rules if they didn't have all of this ballast installed. So all in all, the Pro Stock car, its engine and chassis working together, that are responsible for the kind of records we saw this weekend. They're the most sophisticated and the most expensive cars to build in the sport of NHRA drag racing.
That is the Oldsmobile of Don Coons, that black and silver automobile backing up, getting ready to go. His competition will be Butch Leal. Now, this is an interesting setup, Steve, because Don Coons qualified in the 8th spot, always among the contenders, but never quite a major winner. Butch Leal, on the other hand, coming on strong. He qualified 4th.
That's right, and that's 4th as far as the points they earn coming into the Mr. Gasket Pro Stock Challenge. Well, what a boon to Pontiac Butch Leal has been. He has given them the only 2 wins they've ever enjoyed in NHRA Pro Stock Racing.
As a matter of fact, we saw him win the Spring Nationals. But you know, Steve, if anybody is going to break up that little pair of Warren Johnson and Bob Glidden, it could be Butch Leal.
Oh, absolutely, and don't they know it. Don Coons, he's aware that Butch Leal, well, Butch Leal's a whole shot artist. He tries to chop that tree down each and every round. Now, they're taking their time here. Pro Stocks used to stage very quickly. Not anymore. They're just like races and funny cars now. And it's a red light. A foul start by Don Coons in the near lane. It was he who was gambling. Butch Leal goes on with a very nice 7.56. And I'll tell you how good a light Butch Leal cut, Brock. He was in 1/100th of red lighting.
That's incredible. That is almost unbelievable. But that is the game that is played by these Pro Stock guys. You see an awful lot of red lights because the cars are so evenly matched. These drivers have no choice but to squeeze that light to the absolute limit. And they're prepared to take the red lights. It's just a hazard of this particular game.
Next up, Bruce Allen in the far lane, up against Jerry Ekman, Ventura, California. That's the car whose crew was nice enough to dissect it for me down at the end of the racetrack. Brock, I want to thank him for that. And here's a man who played the Pro Stock game perfectly last year. Bruce Allen won it all in the Mr. Gaskin Pro Stock Challenge at the wheel of the Rear and Morrison Camaro.
Well, Steve, like Bruce Allen, Jerry Ekman is a full-time professional driver running for this particular team out of California. Never, though, had quite the level of success that Bruce Allen and the Rare Morrison cars enjoyed.
Boy, Ekman is just always there, Brock. He's always in the top half of the field in qualifying, and he scored enough points to make it into the Mr. Gaskin Pro Stock Challenge. So you know that consistency is one thing that he does have. Horsepower is what that car is.
Oh, absolutely. If anybody equals or begins to equal the horsepower generated by the Glidden Ford and by the Warren Johnson Oldsmobile, it is this Rare Morrison Chevrolet.
Absolutely. Here's Jerry Ekman. Let's see if he gambles on the lights. Anytime you're up against that yellow and white car, you have to think, boy, oh boy, they may outrun me. I got to do something in self-defense. So let's see if he can get away clean. A whole shot can pull it off, as we have seen so many times. Ekman in the near lane from California. Bruce Allen, Arlington, Texas in the far lane. And again, they take their time staging. Now the RPMs go almost 8,000 as they leave the line, and it's a good green light start. But Bruce Allen has it all in hand. He had a monstrous hole shot off the starting line, and he also has the winning time at 7.47 seconds at 185 miles per hour.
So he'll move into the semifinals as the next pair comes to the line. And look at that number 1 on that Ford Thunderbird, Steve. That's not on there for decoration.
Indeed not. That is the world champion Bob Glidden from nearby Whiteland, Indiana. After the crash in Atlanta, he's come back to win the last 2 races up against Gordy Rivera from Yuma, Arizona. What a character. And we've seen this guy accomplish some incredible upsets.
Oh, absolutely. He's always fun to watch. You see that number 5 on his car? That means that Gordy was in the hunt all season long with that Camaro of his. So this is going to be a good matchup. The big horsepower and all that experience, the World Championships, one of the winningest drag racers in history, Bob Glidden versus the always gutsy, always daring Gordy Rivera.
And more important for the fans, it's Ford versus Chevrolet, the classic confrontation in drag racing. Glidden is staged. Rivera is taking his time, putting a little psychological pressure possibly on Bob Glidden. Finally, it is Gordy Rivera out first. Gordy Rivera has a big hole shot, Brock.
Oh, he does, Steve. 14/100ths of a second. That's like a full afternoon in Pro Stock, and he'll win it. Even though Glidden turns a lower ET and a higher top speed. But Gordy Rivera's hole shot in his 760, 183 miles an hour, beats Glidden's 748, 187. Big speed differential by Glidden. What a top-end charge he made, but it doesn't pay off after this. That sensational hole shot by Gordy Rivera. There you can see at half track, Rivera still has a half car length lead, hanging on, using that Chevrolet horsepower to pull out the big upset so far. A quarter of a car length victory by Gordy Rivera. Oh boy, the man from Yuma's got to be happy.
Been a long time since we've seen the smiling face of Gordy Rivera. You beat Bob Glidden, a 1200th hole shot.
Oh boy, I love it. I can't believe it. I didn't think I could do it with him running so fast, but I guess anything's possible out here.
Were you rolling the dice maybe a little bit up there?
I tried a little bit. I gotta grant it. I was trying a little harder.
Oh, a tremendous job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we talked earlier about how these guys squeeze that light, gamble that they're gonna stay away from that dreaded red, and it worked out for Gordy Rivera to perfection that time.
Next up, an interdivision rivalry race between a couple of GM products. In the near lane is the beautiful Chevrolet Camaro of Joe Lapone, wrenched by Bill Grumpy Jenkins. And in the far lane, the first driver in NHRA Pro Stock Racing to run 190, Warren Johnson. Warren Johnson from Duluth, Georgia, has a real shot at the World Championship this year.
Joe Lapone, always there. A guy a lot like Gordy Rivera, Don Coons, can knock off one of the big names at any given moment as we get ready. Though Johnson, brings the big speed into this round, Steve, 190 miles an hour.
Indeed, as they're staged, it's Warren Johnson away first. Warren Johnson off the mark. Joe Lapone is making a race out of this. Lapone is going to, crush the finish line ahead of Warren Johnson. a 7:60, 181. Warren Johnson off the pace at 7.72. Lapone must have thought it was all over when he saw Warren Johnson leave first.
Well, Steve, this is a bizarre race. Warren Johnson had the quicker reaction time. He's away first. And at the end of this quarter mile, he comes up with a big speed, 188 miles an hour. That's 7 miles an hour quicker than Joe. But in between that, Joe Lapone comes up with a lower ET to win the race. Kind of a bizarre turn of events, but a big win for Joe Lapone, who knocks off Warren Johnson. So the big names are out.
Well, Warren, after that 190-mile-per-hour shot in qualifying, you looked really to be a favorite in the Mr. Gasket Pro Stock Challenge.
Yeah, we looked like we were going to have a, not a cakewalk in it, but at least we were competitive on it. But unfortunately, the 190 mile an hour just indicates that we've got a lot of power. And in this type of racing, you have to be able to put it to the ground. And that run, we just shook the tires tremendously. I was out on Joe by damn near a tenth of a second, and it just shook the tires so violently that he got ahead of me, and I just couldn't catch him. I did run 188 plus on that run, but it wasn't a vain effort.
What is the physical sensation inside the car when it starts to shake, as you call it?
Well, that one's a real violent shake. You actually can't even see where you're going. Your eyes are open, but you can't see anything at all. And you just hope that by the seat of your pants, as long as I've driven these things, you can pretty much tell by the seat of your pants if you're going straight. If you feel that you're at all crossed up, that you're putting yourself at jeopardy or the other racer or anything like that, you certainly should lift. And we weren't in that shape at all. But
sorry to see you out so early.
That's the way it goes.
So, tire shake puts Warren Johnson away as the semifinal pairings here in the Mr. Gasket Challenge will bring up Joe Lapone versus Bruce Allen. Bruce with a lane choice. And the other pair, Gordy Rivera versus Butch Leal. Two of the real light squeezers here, right, Steve?
You bet. That'll be a starting line war. Back in the funny car pit area, you see some sealant being applied to the cylinder heads in preparation for putting the engine back together on Billy Meyer's car. That is one tired crew. They're just operating right now, Brock, on adrenaline alone.
And we'll be back with Top Fuel semifinals after this.
The Top Fuel semifinals about to unfold here at the 32nd Annual U.S. Nationals. I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates in Indianapolis, Indiana, and that is Darrell Gwynn preparing to heat those monstrous rear tires. His opponent here in the semis will be Dick LaHaye. The two have met in the final round twice this year, and both times Darrell Gwynn has narrowly defeated Dick, Brock. And I tell you, this man, Dick LaHaye and his daughter Kim, they owe the Gwynn camp a couple.
And they might be prepared to repay him because he's been running very, very well here at Indianapolis. As you said earlier, Steve, LaHaye has had his share of problems over the years. Over 25 years of drag racing. He's bounced off a couple of fences here at Indianapolis. But so far today, that car has been working really well.
And we heard Darrell Gwynn say in a winning interview earlier that he is backing that animal down, as he called it. He better not back it down too far.
That's right. LaHaye, known for his consistency, very, very seldom makes any mistakes. Is a lot like Jim Head in the funny car ranks. Runs just straight up. Head runs the race car without any tricks and lets the other guy make the mistakes.
And we always see in the pit area, all these engines coming apart, they have not taken the cylinder heads off of that engine, Brock, since they got here, which is absolutely incredible. It may be the most efficient engine in Top Fuel racing today. Maybe not the most powerful, but using every ounce of that.
Absolutely right. Well, we've seen so many cases over the years of guys simply overpowering the racetrack. You'd think that the more power you had, the better you'd be, and the more success you would enjoy, but that's not necessarily the case. Any one of these cars is capable of overpowering the tires. And right now, Darrell Gwynn, as you said earlier, has maybe taken a little bit of power out of that car, maybe backed that clutch out a little bit, so he's not going to hook that thing up quite as hard.
And I would guess that lady walking around in the background, Kim LaHaye, has put a little more power in this engine. As much as they hate to hurt it, they would risk burning at least a half a dozen, maybe all 8 pistons to get Darrell Gwynn after what he has done to their pocketbook this year. He has literally picked their pocket for $50,000.
And it's paid off for Darrell because he's got himself some new sponsorship and an infusion of funds. So he may be ready to tear a motor up here to move on in the U.S. Nationals.
It's a beautiful start. They leave absolutely together. They are side by side. LaHaye had a bit of a lead, but Darrell Gwynn drives by. What a drag race. 2 100s separated those cars. A 5:43 for Gwynn, a 5:45 for LaHaye.
And an almost perfectly identical start. Reaction times, for all intents and purposes, absolutely equal.
and an excellent driving chore by both men. Notice that the dragsters are just pointed straight at the finish line. Not any kind of movement at all on the racetrack. Gwynn moves ever so slightly to the inside of the track here, but not enough to take that victory away from him by only a matter of a few feet.
For the second year in a row, Darrell Gwynn goes into the U.S. Nationals Top Fuel Final. You had to be concerned changing that clutch.
We changed clutch, we changed tires, we hopped her up a little bit, and it worked out for us okay.
What a drag race. 5:43 to Dick LaHaye's 5:45.
I knew he was right there the whole time, and I knew he'd be right there when I left the starting line because he is one heck of a driver, and I knew I had my work cut out for me.
Did you see him all the way down the racetrack?
All the way to the last light.
Did you hear him?
I could hear him, see him, everything.
Okay, congratulations going into that final.
So, the youngster is now in the finals. Let's see if the old man can make it as well. That is Joe Amato. That's the man that Big Daddy Don Garlits is going to have to get by to reset the stage of last year, Steve, when Gwynn and Big Daddy went at it in the finals.
Garlits has struggled all weekend. He's talked about that. We've talked about that. I think the big break came when he got that single against Gene Snow. Brockett gave him a chance to win easily, to learn some things. This could be very interesting.
Well, on the other hand, though, Joe Amato, everybody has been waiting for Joe to break out of that long kind of slump that he's been in. He won the World Championship in convincing style. Remember, he's the man that brought the high wing into the sport. And then all of a sudden, his good fortune just seemed to go away from him. He's always been there, been doing a beautiful job, excellently prepared car, but just not quite enough over the past season to really threaten. This could be the day, though, because Joe Amato, you've got to know, has his incentives at about 120% right now.
That's right, and no one likes to race this man, Don Garlits, more than Joe Amato. He's told me that many times. He said, it may psych out some people to race the legend, not me. He said, I just love to race him, and I love to beat him if I possibly can. And this is for the final round. One of these drivers will race Darrell Gwynn for a whole lot of money in the U.S. Nationals title. Garlits with a big starting line advantage.
He'll drive on to victory here. A 540, 257 miles an hour, overcoming Amato's 556, and a late race charge of 261 miles an hour. Not enough, though. So, we do have a repeat of last year's U.S. Nationals Top Fuel Final. Darrell Gwynn, Don Garlits, a pair of Florida pros going at it here. There is Garlits' crew heading down to their driver. This giant crowd going crazy. They love the old man. He is one of the most popular in the history of the sport.
It's a repeat of last year. Darrell Gwynn and Don Garlits into the final. He ran 5:43, but you have lane choice. You ran 5:40.
Oh, my God. And I shut off early.
Did you really?
Yes, sir. I didn't want to burn it up again.
It's nice to see you smile. That's the first one I've seen this weekend.
I'll tell you, we've had a time with this thing, Steve.
What a rivalry this is turning out to be. The young guy, the older fella, both from Florida.
Good. That's good for the sport, you know. It's got to have those rivalries. It's what look what it did for the Muldowney Garlits confrontation.
Absolutely, I agree. Oh, this is going to be a great final.
Thank you.
So Big Daddy, the current Top Fuel world champion, is into the finals. Let's see about the reigning funny car champion, Kenny Bernstein. Will he make it? We'll find out right after this.
Frantic activity in the pits of Darrell Gwynn. The young man who thought he was in control of this U.S. Nationals event suddenly is facing Don Garlits in the final round, and he has lost lane choice to the defending champion, Big Daddy. And while those two are getting ready, it's time for the funny car semifinals. It will be Kenny Bernstein up against Mike Dunn.
Well, this will be an interesting face-off, Steve. Bernstein, of course, the man that just runs like he's on a schedule down that drag strip. So consistent over the past few years. Mike Dunn in that beautiful Joe Paisano car that, as you said earlier, would win any award for best appearing car, I would imagine, even though he doesn't necessarily stand an even-up chance of beating the world champion.
Well, getting to the semifinals for the Joe Paisano team is a victory of sorts, really. As I said, they race a very limited number of events during the year, primarily on the West Coast, but no one misses the U.S. Nationals. And of course, Paisano, manufacturing all kinds of parts, is heavily involved in the industry as well. So everybody puts an appearance here. And Dunn has run very well and has driven beautifully.
Yes, he has. as we watched Mike Dunn in that beautiful golden black Joe Paisano car. And as you said, Joe doesn't worry about whether he wins or loses. He's making money back in his shop building motors, right?
That's right. Every time you see smoke come out of one of these exhaust pipes, Joe just made $50.
Okay. So Mike Dunn makes one more little short hop. Steve, what would that be for?
Well, Brocky is testing the surface, really. If those tires were to smoke again or get loose, the crew is going to tell him, or he's going to feel it himself. And he knows that he's got to change his style off the starting line. But the car appeared to hook up very well. Some drivers will do that. Some feel that that is too hard on the clutch, and that you're costing yourself in that department. But most of the funny cars will do some kind of a dry hop, they call it, just to test that starting line surface.
Well, there you see the world champion, Kenny Bernstein, getting ready. There is his crew, and what a veteran crew. Dale Armstrong is probably the finest funny car mechanic, I suppose, in the world today, and he has just put that car into contention everywhere it runs.
That's right, and Gary Slusher, who wrenches on the Paisano car, has vast experience in this sport. But as you pointed out, Brock, anytime you're racing a 271-mile-an-hour funny car, you are in tough. It's a good lead. There's Mike Dunn out first. Mike Dunn with a nice hole shot. Bernstein almost loses control, and suddenly something goes wrong with Bernstein's motor. Joe Paisano, that's the most emotion I have ever seen him show on the starting line. That is one happy man. Mike Dunn goes into the final round of the U.S. Nationals. That's a first for him.
Let's take one more look at this incredible upset here as Mike Dunn leaves just a wink before Kenny Bernstein. He has the race theoretically in hand right here, although he doesn't know it, as Kenny Bernstein makes a mid-track charge. And watch this. You're going to see that death smoke from that Bernstein car ending today for Kenny.
Well, there is the story of Kenny Bernstein's demise. It appears that a spark plug shot right out of the engine and up through the body, killed at least one cylinder, and Kenny, you were ahead.
Oh yeah, it was fine. Mike did a good job on the starting line. Took that gamble with a 480 light, but the Budweiser King Motorcraft tempo was already by him. Everything was fine. All of a sudden, it went very sour. Went south. It had an explosion out one side and then the other, and it was over with. I saw fire at the bottom, and that was it.
I know how much this meant to you and how disappointed you must be, but what performance, what thrills you gave us this weekend.
Well, I appreciate it, Steve. I really do. And, those thrills are great, and they'll be with us. But we got to go after that Winston Championship. There's 4 more to go, and Oswald's looking good. I hope my other body maybe does the trick for us up there on Billy Meyer.
Let's go back to the starting line and find out. Will it be Billy Meyer or will it be Mark Oswald up against Mike Dunn?
Well, Steve, we're going to find out right now because that is Billy Meyer and the bodywork supplied by Kenny Bernstein. That is his own chassis, of course, an engine, but the bodywork, Ford Tempo, courtesy Kenny Bernstein's team. A pair of Texans, of course, Kenny now operating out of the West Coast, but originally from the Dallas area, and Waco, Texas's own Billy Meyer. Going against him, the Candies and Hughes Pontiac, driven by Mark Oswald. And Steve, I would imagine you would list him as the favorite in this face-off.
Well, I would, Brock, for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's had a little bit better performance. But number two, I really wonder how much Billy Meyer and that crew have left. They have literally worked all night for 2 consecutive nights to get that car straightened out. Billy Meyer inside the car has been with the crew the whole time. He wasn't back at the hotel getting some sleep. He was in there working, and here we go. It is Meyer off first. If he's tired, he's sure not showing it. It is Meyer ahead. Here comes Oswald. A tremendous top-end charge by Mark Oswald is not enough. Meyer runs a little bit slower at 582 to Oswald's 580. Billy Meyer won it right on the starting line, Brock.
He sure did, Steve. Here you see it. Billy Meyer away a wink earlier and drives on to victory and blew the motor up right at the end, but Billy Meyer hangs on. How quickly the complexion of this sport can change. That tire smoke there in the Mark Oswald car, a car that had earlier run 266 miles an hour, goes down to defeat against an underdog, a man who had worked all weekend to get here.
Some terrific driving for Billy Meyer and some traction problems for Mark Oswald put this man, Billy Meyer, into the final. You won 200 slower. You ran an 82, he ran an 80. You were worn out?
Since I saw you last, we had to change a motor and a little rain, so we're okay.
You may have to change another one, judging by the smoke coming out of it.
There's been smoke every run. At least the body was still on it.
That's what Kenny Bernstein was praying for.
Yeah, I hope that this will help a little bit for the Budweiser guys helping us. Of course, the Chief Auto Parts people, names should be on the side, but as long as we can wear the fire suit in the final, that's fine.
In some ways, it's kind of an unlikely final after your explosion in qualifying and Mike Dunn, who's never really enjoyed a day like this.
Actually, after my whole year, it's unlikely final. But that's just what happens if you keep trying.
Gotcha. Nobody tries harder than Billy Meyer.
And that trying could pay off in his second U.S. Nationals championship, as Billy Meyer will face Mike Dunn in the funny car final, with Meyer enjoying lane choice as well.
And back in the Don Garlits pits, things a little bit more relaxed. Everybody just going about their normal maintenance of the engine. After that 5:40 elapsed time, Garlits is pleased and confident going into the final up against Darrell Gwynn. Big Daddy pounded the pistons in and ducking underneath to check with her parts as to the condition of the bottom end of the engine. But out in the starting line area, formed and ready, the semifinals of the Mr. Gasket Pro Stock Challenge. We'll have that when we return.
Well, Billy Meyer's road to the funny car finals here at the U.S. Nationals has been strewn with broken parts. Remember, he exploded a blower in qualifying, and then in his semifinal run against Mark Oswald, broke another motor. So engine number three is now going into his funny car, Steve.
Well, they'll save a little diesel fuel on the way back to Waco, because that trailer is going to be considerably lighter on the return trip. Here we go. It's time for the Mr. Gasket Pro Stock Challenge semifinals, and these are the red light bandits. Gordy Rivera, who upset Bob Glidden with a giant hole shot, and Butch Leal, who has done that so many hundreds of times in his long career.
They are gamblers. Absolutely, two of the most spectacular pro stock drivers as they try their best to squeeze the lights. And remember, we saw Butch Leal cut an almost perfect light as he moved into the semifinals here. So his reaction time mastery holds up. And Gordy Rivera, of course, with a victory over the champion Bob Glidden. Interesting matchup, Steve.
And Starter Buster Couch will tell you this is the most difficult class for him as the starter, because if he gives them too quick a light, they don't have the RPMs up where they belong. If he's too long, they can blow the motor up. They're sitting waiting for the light. So it takes some coordination between the drivers and the starter to really make pro stock work. It's a beautiful start. Leal is away first by 300s, but look at Rivera. Rivera door handle with the Pontiac and loses by only about 3/4 of a car length. Good thing Leal was on time, a 761 to a real close 763.
Top speed, only a mile-an-hour difference there. Leal's 183, Rivera 1 mile an hour back of 182. But look at these cars drive down this drag strip. Almost a perfect pass for both of them. Just about as close a drag race as you can get. But pro stock competition, folks expect it to be this way. If you win by more than a car length, it's a runaway.
Well, Butch Leal was off the starting line first by 3/100ths of a second, and it's a darn good thing. You ran a 761 to his 763, so it had to have been pretty close.
Yeah, Steve, I shook the tires real bad in second. He came right alongside of me, and I thought, oh, no, don't shake, and it got real crossed up and finally straightened up in the middle. It ran a little bit better than him, I think, and that's what saved us. My goodness, man, what a race.
All right, we'll see some more here. This is the other half of the semifinal field here in the Mr. Gasket Pro Stock Challenge. That is Bruce Allen with a rare Morrison Camaro. He will go against yet another Camaro, Bill Grumpy Jenkins, wrenched Camaro driven by Joe Lapone.
Lapone from Newtonsport, Pennsylvania, long, tall, always very fit, could probably be a successful athlete in a number of different sports. And he prides himself again on those good reactions. In the near lane, Bruce Allen, he prides himself on a lot of horsepower. You'll never see this man red light, Brock. He just cuts good, steady lights. He never pushes it too hard. He relies on that big Chevrolet from Texas. And it's Joe Lapone away first. Joe Lapone has an advantage. Joe Lapone. No, it is Bruce Allen. I couldn't have called that, Brock. The wind light had to do it. The computer, I couldn't tell.
Absolutely, as close a race as you'll ever see. Couldn't be more than an inch or two separating these two cars. It looked as if Lapone was going to take it. Actually, his reaction time was a little bit better. He was away first. As you said earlier, though, that conservative streak in Bruce Allen, never red lighting or trying never to. As you can see, though, Lapone has about a half a car at the half track. But here comes Allen in the near lane, and look at this finish. the matter of the thickness of a chrome trim piece brings Bruce Allen into the finals against Butch Leal.
For the second year in a row, Bruce Allen goes into the final of the Mr. Gasket Pro Stock Challenge. Boy, it had to have been close, guys. A 7:51 won it.
Oh, man, we had some shake on that run. That was shook a little through low and got it in second. Joe was just out there a little bit and just kept edging on him. The old rear Morrison horsepower pulled us through that one. That's all there was to it.
Your opponent in the final round, Butch Leal, had the same complaint, the shake.
Yeah, I think the track might be getting a little stickier out there. I think instead of it being get a case where it gets worse and it gets slippery, I think it's just a case of where there's a lot of traction and it's just shaking the tires off it.
Be alert in that final round. You know Butch will try to leave on you. He always does.
Man, we've had some good races. We'll just have to have another one.
Okay. We can almost guarantee that. As a matter of fact, it's going to be a rematch of this event from last year. And that one was won by Bruce Allen. Who'll win it this time? Stick around. It's coming up. Well, this giant crowd here at Indianapolis Raceway Park is on its feet. They are waiting to see 4 cars, 2 races, to spell the Top Fuel and Funny Car champions. And right now, we've got Funny Car ready. And Steve, it is Billy Meyer in this substitute bodied car from the Kenny Bernstein pit against kind of a surprise.
You bet it's a surprise. Mike Dunn in the Joe Paisano car. Joe Paisano was drag racing when Billy Meyer was in kindergarten. As far as the drivers are concerned, Meyer about a year older than Mike Dunn. But who would have thought, after watching Meyer explode on Friday and Mike Dunn with his problems over the past years and really coming in here more to make an appearance than anything else, that this would be the Funny Car final? Incredible.
Absolutely. These are what you would call underdogs. That is Joe Paisano himself guiding his driver, Mike Dunn, back into the starting line, giving him one last little shot as Mike Dunn moves up to the line.
Now, this team has won a couple of national events, both at the fairgrounds in California, Pomona, with driver Al Segrini. But this is the first time that Mike Dunn has brought the car into a final round. For Billy Meyer, not much left on that race car that he started with Thursday, except the chassis and himself. He's on his 3rd engine. This one is untried. It's a combination they've not run this weekend. And smoking the tires is Mike Dunn. But something goes wrong with Billy Meyer's car. Mike Dunn, his first ever U.S. Nationals victory.
What an event. These 2 cars, both underdogs coming into the finals, and it appeared as if Mike Dunn was a loser when he went up in smoke, and then suddenly mechanical disaster struck Billy Meyer and permitted Mike Dunn to move on to a really unchallenged victory. There you see it. The tire smoke that appears to doom Mike Dunn, and then suddenly in the left-hand lane, Billy Meyer just looks as if he puts on the brakes. Something massive breaks in the drivetrain of that automobile, and it is all over. So an easy victory, a surprise victory for Mike Dunn.
You know, they put so much emphasis on the race cars of today. In my opinion, you, Mike Dunn, won this race virtually yourself today in your driving. You never gave up on that final with Billy. What a race.
Oh, I know. I always smoked the tires. I thought he had me. And sometimes you're in an advantage when you smoke the tires first if the other guy smokes because he doesn't know what I'm doing. I seen him get in trouble, and I got back in it, and the car recovered, which was, a good thing. And we went on by and won the race, and feels good.
Lead change stands a couple of times, and that doesn't happen too often in a drag race.
Oh, yeah, that's when it's exciting, when you get them lead changes going down the track. It was a very good race. I got to give credit to Joe Paisano and Gary Slesher and the rest of the crew. They did a great job, and this is a lot. I like getting TV coverage this way better than the other way, let me tell you.
Well, he's at it both ways. We saw Mike have a giant crash at the Spring Nationals a few years ago, Steve, so I'm sure he's a happier man to do it this way.
The Top Fuel Final, the last race of the 32nd Annual NHRA US Nationals. The near lane, Big Daddy Don Garlits. The far lane, his prime rival in this sport, Darrell Gwynn, both from the state of Florida. Darrell Gwynn has defeated Garlits on occasion, but never in a final round, and certainly not 1 year ago. Gwynn appeared to be in control of the event. Garlits has suddenly risen to the top as a favorite here based on lap time. Garlits has the lane choice. It's time.
But remember, Steve, it was during qualifying for this event that we saw Darrell Gwynn run a 5:34. Will he do it again?
Garlits is off first, has some handling problems, recovers. It is Big Daddy Don Garlits winning his 3rd U.S. Nationals in a row. And what a job he did behind the wheel. His quickest lap time in the event.
5:39.
Almost at the level of the record of Darrell Gwynn. Gwynn runs a 5:44 right there. Good start by both men, but it is the superior horsepower, apparently, of Big Daddy Don Garlits that wins number 8 for him here at Indianapolis Raceway Park.
You a little stunned here?
Well, you know, we were really running bad, and we just couldn't get a handle on it, and it seemed like when we were at our absolute worst, we just never gave up hope, and the Lord just shined down on us and gave us a good one. He just showed you that you have seen a bona fide 20th century miracle here today.
In what way, Don?
Well, nothing was going right for us. Everything was wrong. And we didn't do anything to the car that should have caused it to just come around like that. All of a sudden, everything just fell into place. I mean, you saw the engine over there. You came over there before the 540. It just wasn't anything left. We were putting a clutch in it. We were putting all pistons, new heads. And then we just, you know, everything just worked out. I mean, I'm stunned.
Tremendous drag race, though. Just wonderful. And here comes the crew for Big Daddy Don Garlits, crew chief Herb Parks, associate Art Malone, wife Pat, both his daughters on board. This is a group that works so hard for this victory.
Well, yet again, the experience, the skill of this man pays off. The greatest drag racer of them all, without question, wins his 8th U.S. Nationals title. A terrific victory. For Steve Evans, I'm Brock Yates. Thanks for joining us at the U.S. Nationals.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the Style Auto World Championship Team, the nation's premier source of fast lane fashions. Style Auto, the champion's choice for the style of your life. The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.